World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists and the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine.
Wow.
That's a pretty bold statement. He's talking about Victoria Nuland. If you remember, that's the U.S. official who was caught on tape plotting a coup in Ukraine back in 2014. She's the one who says that, talking about who the next leader of Ukraine should be, and who they decide on, a guy named Yatsenyuk, is exactly who became the new prime minister of Ukraine after the coup in February 2014. And Trump here appears to be referring to that. The State Department supported uprisings in Ukraine, which is the highest level person in the U.S. to ever admit to U.S. involvement in the 2014 coup.
These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world. And now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it. And I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades. And that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars.
Ouch.
We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward conflict, only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Take a look at the globalist warmonger donors backing our opponents. That's because they're candidates of war. I am the president who delivers peace, and it's peace through strength. There was a reason we had no conflict. There was a reason we didn't get into wars, because other countries respected us. I entirely built, all right from the beginning, rebuilt our military. It's a big reason for that. They didn't want to mess around with the United States, and now they're laughing at us. We could end the Ukraine conflict in 24 hours with the right leadership. At the end of my next 4 years, the warmongers and frauds and failures of the senior ranks of our government will all be gone, and we will have a new group of competent national security officials who believe in defending America's vital interests above all else. Thank you very much.
So that's Trump. And when he says a lot there, and he says, for example, that if he were president, that the Russian invasion of Ukraine wouldn't have happened. He's not the first to say that. Bitter critics of his, including Fiona Hill, a former White House expert, and also the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, have also said that if Trump were president, this invasion wouldn't have happened. But what Trump is leaving out here is that his own policies played a major role in setting the stage for this invasion to happen. Because as much as Trump has criticized sometimes warmongers like he's doing here, he sided with the warmongers. He appointed them to his own cabinet, and they oversaw a number of policies that made this invasion by Russia a lot more likely, which he's not owning up to here. So here's just some of them, okay? From 2019, Trump to seek $250 million in new lethal aid to Ukraine. So that was Trump doing what Obama refused to do, which is send a whole category of weapons to Ukraine that Obama didn't want to send. Trump says U.S. will withdraw from nuclear arms treaty with Russia. Experts warned of most severe crisis in nuclear arms control since the 1980s as Trump confirms U.S. will leave the INF agreement. Nord Stream 2, Trump approved sanctions on Russia gas pipeline. That was Trump trying to stop Russia's most important piece of foreign infrastructure, the pipeline between Russia and Germany, bringing cheap Russian energy to Germany, which Trump took the lead in trying to stop. And of course, Biden administration took up the mantle by blowing it up. So all these things radically escalated tensions with Russia. Those were Trump policies. And even when he left office, this is what Trump said in March 2022. He said, I would threaten Russia with nuclear submarines if still president. Okay. So that sounds like warmongering to me. Even though in 2016, he ran as sort of an anti-neocon candidate, he criticized Hillary Clinton and John McCain and Jeb Bush for the wars in Iraq and Libya and Syria. He still came into office and he appointed a bunch of warmongers and he pursued warmongering policies, including appointing Mike Pompeo. And listen to how proud Mike Pompeo was of how his administration under Trump escalated tensions with Russia.
After Helsinki, do you think that the American people deserve to know what's in President Trump's tax returns and business interests that are intertwined with Russia?
Senator, I'm going to try to stay out of the same political circus that you and I ended up in last time I was sitting here, and simply respond by saying this same president with which you seem to express such deep concern is engaged in a massive defense buildup, which threatens Vladimir Putin's regime. He instructed us to put together a nuclear posture review that has set Vladimir Putin on his ear because of its robustness and the recapitalization of our nuclear program. He's kicked out 60 spies. We banned Kaspersky.
Yeah,
we put $11 billion in the European Defense
Mr. Secretary,
Initiative.
you've already
No, Senator,
said
actually,
that.
I haven't even begun to scratch the
No,
surface.
but you've already... You
Wow.
haven't answered my question, so let me try it a little different way.
Wow, Pompeo showing some honesty.
Exactly. And they don't want to hear it because they're so fixated to their conspiracy theory that Trump is a Russian asset. So Pompeo pointing out all the ways Trump is escalating tensions with Russia, they don't want to hear that.
Wouldn't you want to know, as Secretary of State? I mean, I'm taking you in your sincerity here as Secretary of State, whether all these Russian financial interests, oligarchs, and others are part of the decision-making of the president. I mean, wouldn't you want that out in the open and to understand what went on at Helsinki? It's an easy kind of yes or no question.
Senator, I don't need secondhand understandings of what President Trump is instructing his administration to do to push back against Russia. I have firsthand understandings and directives.
Well, let me ask the question a little bit differently.
We've opposed
here.
Nord Stream 2. We've got a 4x30 out of NATO that also is a big setback for Russia. I mean, I'm happy to continue the list. I'm happy to cease there, but I will submit the entirety of this administration's actions against Russia for the record, if I might.
Please do.
We'll back a truck up and get it on in here.
On the left, quote unquote, it's Democrats insisting that Trump is a Russian agent doing Putin's bidding. On the right are people like Mike Pompeo who were in power saying, no, actually, we're radically escalating tensions with Russia and we're happy to keep doing it. Trump, meanwhile, coming to office, talking about cooperating with Russia, talking about taking on the neocons. He appointed neocons like Mike Pompeo, and he didn't do any of the things he said he would do. Defenders of Trump might say, well, look, he had no choice. He was boxed in. He faced a lot of pressure. He was new to Washington. He couldn't stand up to the warmongers. Even he was threatened. And there's truth to that, because check out what Chuck Schumer said.
The latest statement, latest tweet, as you were just saying, the president-elect's latest unsolicited pronouncement on the intelligence community. This was his tweet just a little while ago tonight. You see the scare quotes there. The intelligence briefing on so-called Russian hacking was delayed until Friday. Perhaps more time needed to build a case. Very strange. We're actually told, intelligence sources tell NBC News since this tweet has been posted, that actually this intelligence briefing for the president-elect was always planned for Friday. It hasn't been delayed. But he's taking these shots, this antagonism, this taunting to the intelligence community.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I'm told, They are very upset with how he has treated them.
There we go. And whether it was the intimidation from forces like Chuck Schumer mentioned from the national security state, who have 6 ways from Sunday to get back at the president who goes against them, or whether it was just Trump wanting to get along and be liked by Republicans who are dominated by neocons, his actual policies escalated tensions with Russia. And now he's calling out the agenda that he himself advanced, and a lot of what he said there is totally true. And that is why they don't like Trump, not because of his policies, which they actually support and encourage, but because sometimes he speaks the truth and sometimes he calls out the right people accurately. It's just a shame for his own legacy that he couldn't apply any of that critique he has to his own policies.
When Trump got in office and he mentioned that there's a deep state, they're like, you can't say that. What are you doing? And when he said, hey, when they asked him, why are you leaving your troops in Syria? And he said, for the oil. They're like, you can't. Yeah. He goes, no, it's for the oil. No, it's for liberty. It's for helping the people. Yeah. No, it's for the oil. It's our oil. And so he let the cat out of the bag, and they can't have that. That's what he blew the whistle on what's actually going on. Our wars are for oil. Our wars are economic wars, just like what's happening in Ukraine. This is an economic war. We're trying to put a hurt and isolate Russia. We're afraid of Russia and their natural resources and their manpower coming together with Germany with their technology and their capital. And we've been saying that for decades. And so that's why we blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. And that's why this Ukraine war is happening. And people have no idea what's happening. And what's worse is they have no idea that they have no idea what's happening.
Yeah, that's the crazy part.
Is it, would you say, when it comes to, there are indictments recommended, of course. Is it more than, not a short list, more, I mean, when it comes to 75 witnesses, like, it's not, I assume, of course, it's not 75 people. Would you characterize it as 20-ish people?
I can't say I counted.
Okay. More than a dozen, though, I think I'd heard you say in another interview?
I believe so. It's probably a good assumption.
The name that everyone wants to know about is former President Trump.
Of course.
Did you recommend charges against Donald Trump?
I really don't want to share something that the judge made a conscious decision not to share.
Personally want to hear from the former president.
I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, do you solemnly swear? And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome moment.